Hello everybody, welcome to my third guide for Idol Showdown. Today we're going to be doing the character guide for Aki Rosenthal. So if you haven't seen the other couple of videos and you're new to how I do my things, just to give you kind of a quick rundown, I am going to be going over pretty much each aspect of the characters that, that they do. Basically, like normals, specials, what collabs I recommend, and, basic combo stuff. For the most part, this is mostly like a basic how-to guide. However, unlike how-to basic, we're not going to be cracking any eggs today. Unless you count, my 2 eggs that we're going to be cracking, because this took me longer to do this than I had anticipated. And that's just my own stupidity on that part for taking too long to actually start this video guide for Aki. So I feel confident enough today, and without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right in and talk about what Aki technically is in Idol Showdown. Okay, so here we are. We're going to be talking about the overview of Aki. So, as you can see, essentially her type in this game, so to speak, right underneath her name says magical pressure from afar. And basically that just is pretty much telling you that she's essentially just a zoner. And she's a half-elf from another world. I think that's what the title is. I always get those mixed up, I'm sorry, but that should be. I'm going to check something real quick. Yeah, okay. Usually, like, the second one usually seems to always be kind of like the title of the character, like Persona 4 Arena does. So, as you can see from her stats alone, she is definitely more, geared toward the zoning side of things, as you can no doubt tell there. And that's kind of where a lot of her weaknesses and offenses, or her weaknesses and strengths kind of come into play. And she has a lot more strengths than weaknesses, which is nice. But a lot of her strengths do kind of rely on being relatively spatial and being able to zone. And on top of that, not just being able to zone, but she's also a hybrid character too, where she's not necessarily a puppet character, but she's kind of like a summon character, where she can summon Mookie Rose to come in and help her out with the fight. However, of course, he's not necessarily a puppet, but, well, Aki's not necessarily a puppet character, but you get the idea. So she's kind of like a hybrid of the two, sort of. And I'd say she's mostly kind of like a zoner. So, alright, let's go ahead and get into the normals. Alright, here we go. We're going to be talking about Aki's normals. And just to kind of go over the specifics of what makes a normal. It's essentially just like your lights, your medium, your heavy, that type of stuff. Pretty much just whatever your buttons are correlated with your, well, the in-game buttons, so to speak. And also, this is a pretty good setup for the 2 characters that I actually planned on doing next. I don't know if I'll probably actually do Ayami next, but she's technically kind of planned for that, but we'll see. But that's neither here nor there, because today we're going to be talking about her normals, like I mentioned. So we're going to be starting off with just the standing, and then eventually going to like crouching and then jumping. So the first normal we're going to go over is her standing light. And this is probably going to be the one that's going to trick people a lot. And to be fair, I'm now playing version 1.2.3, so I'm not 100% sure if they changed things or not. But as you can see, real quick, before I go into the specifics of why this is going to be a weird move to have talk about, as you can see, it's essentially like a very low-ish kick, right? Like, she clearly like kicks toward the ground, as you can, or at least kicks near the ground, like right above it, You get the idea. You can see it. So this is where things get kind of weird, and if my instincts are correct, then this should be the case, but we'll see. So, let me try something here. Let me try this out. Okay, yeah, they just block everything anyway. As far as I'm aware, because it's kind of hard to do it in this type of game, but as far as it stands, this is not considered a low. Sorry. And that's where things are kind of weird about it. Like, it's still, I guess, considered a mid attack, but not a low. So don't, for those that are curious, don't get that like confused with like, you know, light, medium, heavy. Low basically just means something like this, you know, from like the ground, or like, well, that's probably not even low either. Actually, kind of think of it. I don't think so. Well, anyway, basically like this is like a high if you hit them above, you know, or okay, you know, let's just not get into too many crazy things here. My brain is frying already just trying to explain fighting game terms again. Sorry, I'm trying to like do this as fast as I can, but my brain's stopping me. So anyway, yeah, this is just a non-low light hit, and it should just be like a regular mid. And then for her standing medium, it's just a simple, nice, you know, flick of the hair there. And I'm gonna check something to make sure if I'm not mistaken or not. I think it also is an anti-air. Yes, it also does count as an anti-air. I'm probably just not gonna explain too much of all those other specifics, especially like with frames and stuff, which is something I kind of forgot to show off, but I should do that real quick after I finish the circle heavy. So yeah, I'm not gonna go into the crazy details, but like, you know, I'll talk about frames and stuff, but like for those that don't know about that stuff, just ignore it. If you don't understand something, you know, that is technical, then just ignore it. Sorry about that. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Like, this is what happens when you don't do these videos for a while. So the circle hit, or the standing circle, of course, you know, Aki kind of pushes her hands toward, and she also summons Mookie Rose, which he also comes out and he does a bound. So basically what that entails is after you do a bound, you can eventually follow up with a nice hit. Now the weird thing is about Aki's strange light is this. Something I kind of forgot to go over. Like it doesn't count as a low from what I remember. Again, I'm playing a different version, so maybe they did change it. But when it comes to even being able to get a confirm, you're gonna have to go into like something like a standing medium if you want to use like a standing attack. Like your standing light is a pretty okay start for a combo, but not necessarily like a really good combo, you know, extender necessarily. Now granted, you know, there could be like some really big high technical stuff that I don't know, and again, that's just super advanced stuff that I wouldn't really know. And this is mostly just kind of like a basic guide for this character. So just keep in mind that I'm not like a complete pro or anything. And I will eventually mess things up. So that's just how it goes. But if I do mess something up, I do want to say, you know, let me know in the comments. You know, just be polite about it. You know, don't be rude. Just give me feedback. You know, if you have anything extra to add to the video, that's perfectly fine too. Because I'm here for trying to get, you know, some information about the characters out and just get people kind of into the character and help them out and what have you. So anyway, back to our normals real quick. I'm going to go into the crouching light. We showed this one off earlier, and I believe that this one is also an anti-air as well. And a pretty decent one too. And if I'm not mistaken, one of these, I could have sworn it was the crouching light, but I don't think it is. But I could have sworn that crouching light was jump cancelable. Like you could just do it and then just, let me try, like super fast jump canceling, but I guess I suck. But for what I could have understood, like from what I understood, I always heard that it was. And again, there's a site that I use. I think it's called Mizumi, and I'll link it in the description below. But I use it for a lot of my references and ideas of like how things are supposed to work necessarily. So they got good details and good, you know, written research about these characters and stuff. A lot better than what I could potentially do. So if you want to go check that out, of course, links in the description. And links to any other videos that I'm going to reference and or just consider being used for the video. So let's just go into the next little thing here and just talk about the crouching medium. Actually, before we do that, I should make sure of something real quick. So Aki has multiple command normals. And this is where things get kind of weird. Command normals basically means like if you hold the direction, then you hit the button. So we're going to go ahead and just go into just the regular, like variants of just regular crouching move, and then we'll go into the command normals. So her crouching medium is, of course, you know, this hair flick that is relatively pretty close and actually a pretty good move to kind of combo into whenever you get the chance. It's not a bad move at all, really. Pretty fast, pretty light, does a decent bit of damage. Whopping 75. By the way, I'm not going to go over like the frame stuff this time too much. I'm not going to go too much in depth to it unless I specifically kind of want to go over into like that type of move to see exactly if the frames will benefit or not. And of course, at the top you can clearly see the frames, and of course you want to try them out yourself. You always could. I know I did it for Corone, but I think I might not do it too much. For the rest of the characters, just to save a lot of time. These are already like an hour-long videos anyway. So yeah, crouching medium, and this one also just, tends to kind of push Ayame, or pushes your opponent kind of like slightly away, not too far, and does decent bit of damage, so it's a pretty good medium. And then for her crouching heavy, her 2H, this is going to be one of your go-to moves for sure for Aki. This one I'm confident in, because this is a really good move to kind of get into more, like combo-specific stuff. And see if I can actually, if my brain can actually, do it. So, hang on. I'm a tad bit rusty for some reason. But anyway, you get the idea. Like, basically, all it does is you essentially just, summon Mookie Rose, and then he knocks the opponent all the way back into the wall. And, of course, depending on, like, which side of the screen you're on, if you're on, like, mid-screen, it'll be kind of harder to follow up with it. You'd have to, like, dash in to kind of get that, convert off the wall bounce, so to speak. And I think I probably used convert wrong in the wrong sentence there, but oh well. Maybe I did. I'm being dumb again. I don't know. Anyway, so crouching heavy is just a really, really, really good tool to play with. A really incredibly good tool to have, for sure, no doubt about it. So now going into the command normals, and as you saw, there was 3, which is pretty big for these characters now. So we have an air-only command normal, which, I'll probably say that for the air stuff in a second, but we're going to start off with these 2. The twin tail hook and the Aki chopper. So forward M and then down and forward M. So her forward M, and this one's also another good go-to tool in your kit. And this essentially allows Aki to bring the opponent toward her. Now, it's a bit kind of hard to follow up with, unless you're doing like a special or something. But the idea is essentially, going in for that that pull toward you. That's, like I said, that's something you're definitely going to want, and it's definitely something that's going to be really helpful to kind of incorporate within your combos. So let me try something here. Let me see if this works to the degree I kind of think it would. So yeah, there's something like that. Like, it didn't really pull her that far, but you get the idea. And especially if you're on the ground, it's also really good for just pulling an opponent, kind of toward you. Especially like if they're in the corner, and you just, keep mailing on them or whatever. That definitely kind of helps. I want to check something real quick, make sure of something. See if maybe it pushes them while they block. Yeah, it really does. It actually pulls them. Sorry, I said push. It actually does pull them back, even when they are blocking. It actually seems to pull them even farther toward you when they are doing that. Something else to kind of check on while we got the chance. Let's just check on the blocks here to see if maybe potentially any of them kind of go any further. But as you can see, like with the standing heavy version, it of course does a multi-hit. So it does like 2 hits, and it will of course knock the opponent, back. And as you can see, the frame is all fudged up. Unfortunately, this move for, regular light is -2, -7 for medium. Just kind of give it a quick rundown real quick. -3, -10, -7. So just a lot of minus stuff. Oh, that's something else I probably should have explained too. Is Mookie Rose? Well, of course, whenever the opponent happens to block the attack, they're just not going to get hit by the Mookie Rose attack in general, right? Well, something else to kind of go along with that too is the fact that it should be able to, in theory, it should be able to miss crouching opponents, as you can see with the down heavy. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind, is if the opponent is crouching and you haven't been able to hit them, while they're crouching, then that's something to kind of be careful of. So, on to the next is the down and forward medium attack. And as you can see, this one's a bit strange because it doesn't seem to actually attack the opponent when you're right near them, much like you could with the forward M. And essentially the idea with this one is of course it's a long range move. And the gimmick to it that you're probably going to end up using it quite often for is something like along the lines of, say, like this. Oops. If I can be good at games again. One sec. It takes me a bit. But yeah, there you go. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get at, is like essentially whenever you do like the Mookie Rose, wall bounce, especially if the opponent is far away, you can kind of just hit them at a far distance. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll have to do a lot more research, but I'm going to actually probably, I'm cutting up this video, I'm editing the video, so I'm going to do a little bit more research into her combo stuff after I get done with like her specials and whatever, maybe even after I do the normals, so that way I can fully understand the absolute potential that could be the down and forward medium. But as far as I'm aware, it seems at least from mid-screen, it only just seems to kind of just finish off the opponent and just ends that entire combo anyway. But if we were to go in the corner, I want to see if that maybe works possibly a tad bit better maybe in the corner. It's a lot harder to, yeah, maybe closer to the corner. It also has a very specific angle too, so it's really kind of hard to pull off, but yeah, just to kind of give you an oversight of like what it is. Like I said, it just essentially is a move that, can clip opponents. And then I would assume, most likely, you could probably follow up with a special. But I don't want to spoil the specials, but we'll get into them later. So now for the heavy variant of Command Normal is going to be the down and forward heavy, and this is just a simple sweep. So nothing too crazy. I mean, at this point, most characters kind of have these. That's just an overall normal thing anyway. So that's just how that is. Now on to the jumping moves. I don't want to go, too much into the down and forward heavy because it's just essentially just a sweep. It's a nice, simple knockdown that just kind of just puts the opponent on the ground. And there you go. So jumping light is just a nice little, kick. And then jumping medium. This one is the one. Actually, let's just, stop her from jumping. If anything, let's go for crouching moves to see if like any of these might be overheads. So this move is, essentially an overhead, and it will of course, hit them when you're really coming down and what have you. And you can also kind of, start it up early and then go for a nice, quick jump light. It's not a bad light by any means. It doesn't seem like it's too bad. It is minus 22 just in general, even on hit, it looks to be. So I think that's probably like the worst aspect of it, is like the potential unsafeness of it, or at least it being a little bit less safe to pull off. But it is definitely a move that you can do, and it's really just kind of okay, I guess, for maybe potentially throwing off your opponent. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like the kind of move that would be used too much for a lot of things. And when it comes to enemy jumping, then, it doesn't send them back to the ground or anything like that. It just kind of just puts them in the air, or keeps them in the air, keeps them afloat. So nothing too crazy about it. Now, the jumping medium is the one that's crazy. And as far as it looks, this one does kind of go into an overhead. At the very least, it seems like it should. Let me see here. It's kind of hard to make these games do the things. Okay, so it's not technically an overhead. Okay. Sorry. It's not technically an overhead. That is one thing that does kind of end up making it a bit weaker in that aspect. However, this is still a really, really good move, though. And this is definitely one of those moves that, especially if you watch a lot of combo type stuff for Aki herself, you will definitely see a lot of this specific move being used in junction with, combos, basically. But the other thing to kind of also keep in mind about this move, too, that also makes it great, is it's a multi-hit. So you can actually do it, I believe, 3 times. Let me try to get that going here. Yes, okay, there we go. So you can... Let me just mash the hell out of it. See if I can actually do it. It should, in theory, like you saw it earlier, but it should go into 3 hits. And I think you only need to hit it maybe... Okay, you only need to hit it once for like 2 hits. But you saw it happen, essentially, so that's good enough for me, I guess. And again, it's not an overhead. As much as it might look like it could be, it just doesn't count as one. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Now on to the jumping heavy, and this is a really, really good like axe swing kick. So, think of Luffy from One Piece doing his, his Gum Gum axe, I think it was. I think actually was the stomp one. But anyway, I think it just looks cool, and I have a huge soft spot for kicks like this. And I'm going to check something real quick. I'm going to check to see if it actually brings the opponent downward. Yes, it looks like it goes into like just a knockdown. And if you're too close to the ground, it seems like it just kind of catches the opponent. Okay, maybe not. No, okay, that might have just been a fluke. Okay, it looked like for a sec. Okay, yeah, she was still on the ground when it happened. That's why. So it's a really decent move, honestly. And again, it does work exactly as it should as an overhead. So it's a bit kind of it does have a bit of a like a long sort of like startup here. Like you kind of have to you're really gonna have to do it, as like on the peak of your jump if you actually kind of wanted to get to kind of come out here. So that's something to also keep in mind, of course. Now there was one last move, but of course it's one of her command normals, and this is going to be the Aki drill. This is the air only one. So the Aki drill is this. You essentially just do, down medium while in air, and then you go for a drill move. And it looks like it's pretty decent for a move. Nothing too crazy about it that I know that I'm well aware of. Again, if people do know, then of course let me know. If there's some advanced tech that I might not know about necessarily. But yeah, as you can see, it's just a pretty okay dive kick. Seems to have some pretty good frames, even when you were to, hit an opponent at like a... So it had like a -10 at one point, so I think that might have been just either another fluke or... I'm not sure how to get that -10 to come back out, to be honest with you. There it is. So I guess it depends on like where the actual part of the hit happens. Seems to change the frame there for that one. I mean, granted, it's with a lot of moves, but hey, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, again, decent. It should be an overhead. Should be. I probably should have checked that. I know that one is. Okay, so this one's not an overhead, so I lied. I take that back. This one's not an overhead. So complete and total dumbness from me. And I apologize. But yeah, this one's not an overhead, so if the opponent happens to be blocking, then, just understand that you might not get them. Now, in terms of things you could potentially follow up with, and this is something I should probably start incorporating in these videos, because if I remember correctly, in my Coca video, I talked about JH being pretty bad, but it's actually not that bad, and I think I missed the idea that you could actually combo into it after, you hit a crouching opponent on the ground. And I think for like a move like this, I would assume that you could probably follow up with at least something. Maybe a special. So we'll have to definitely look into those when we get the chance. It looks like for her JL, it looks like it doesn't necessarily combo unless I'm not fast enough. Because that's probably why. Of course, her jumping medium, same thing. It's not an overhead, so or JH. Yeah, it's got too much of some recovery there for it to look like it goes into anything else. But I'll definitely do some more looking at that type of stuff just to be on the safe side. And then what else do we got? I think we got one more, right? We got one more thing to check. So we've done all the command normals. Right, the overhead. So this is, of course, just universal overhead. They're typically always... They should always be overheads anyway. So this is, of course, done by performing medium and heavy at the same time. And these don't necessarily go into anything particularly. They don't really ever combo anything because they pretty much just can't. Because if they could, it'd be kind of unfair. Because like these are essentially just openers. Something kind of like with Dragon Ball FighterZ. Where as far as I know, with fighters at least, I don't think you can actually combo after an overhead. You shouldn't be able to, but there might be a trick to it. Doesn't look like you can do any air moves either. So yeah, that's just the overhead. Pretty decent overhead. Not too bad. Not too shabby. And you're +2, so being plus is good, right? And yeah, I think that pretty much just about covers all the normals. So next, we're going to get into talking about the specials. Okay, so here we go. We're going to be talking about the specials. And these ones are going to be where, of course, a lot of characters kind of like, best work kind of starts to show, so to speak. But I'm going to be trying to put them in the most basic ways that I can, while also trying to give you some potentially more advanced ideas with them. Let's just start off with the down special. This one, down special typically is your idle moves. I believe that's what they call it. I think every down special should be considered a universal idle move. But we'll check that in a minute. So this one, of course, says these are the hypnotic hips. A sultry belly dance that powers Aki up. When powered up, Aki's next beam attack will home in on the opponent. Use it to complement Aki's space control. So, of course, what does it mean by her beam thing? Well, let's just go ahead and input the special motion in general. And, of course, this is one of those ones where you have to kind of, like, wait around and move. And I don't think you can cancel out of it. I think you have to get hit out of it for that to cancel, because it doesn't look like you can do that any other way. But, yeah, it seems to be just a special move. It's not an item move then. Okay, so I was wrong about that. I might have misread, because I thought that I could have sworn that move in particular would be how do you put it? Give me 1 second here, folks. Sorry, I'm trying to look something up. Just so I can get a clear idea. I know what the move does. I'm just bringing up a sort of quote-unquote cheat sheet for later. When I'm going to need it. Basically, I'm using Mizumi just to kind of make sure that my specials here are not completely too whack, and I'm not just being stupid with what I say all the time. I'm not going to repeat everything word for word, of course. But yeah, alright, let's just go ahead and get into the actual aspects of what the move is supposed to technically entail anyway. If anything, what I can do is I can just go over all these and then just look up to make sure if this time around, if possibly, things are what I think they are. Yeah, this is what happens when you become a perfectionist like me. You kind of don't want your videos to be too bad. Anyway, let's just stop talking about and rambling about my crap. So, next up is the... I'd say, if anything, I'm just going to do the beams real quick. So, we're going to start off with the light version of the beam called Good Boy. And it says a fast-traveling light beam that travels upward, hitting and jumping opponents. It is best used for mid-full-screen space control. After that, we're going to take on the Bad Boy, which is a fast-traveling light beam that travels downward, hitting grounded opponents. It is best used for mid-screen space control. So these are the ones that is essentially what Hypnotic Hips is referring to. So, again, Bad Boy is the one that should be, going downward. And this is performed, of course, by doing the quarter circle forward light. And it also said that it hits opponents that are also jumping. So it's actually a pretty good, a pretty good tool to kind of, hit them while they're in midair, as you can no doubt see. And depending on like when and where you hit them, you could potentially follow up with like more trajectory and just more other potentially interesting combos that might arise from that. More potential combo stuff that you can do. And of course, if I fire it away at the opponent, let me see here. If I fire it, from like full screen here, it does actually go full screen, which is pretty nice. And if I was to input the down down S, in theory, it's supposed to, yeah, it does work. Okay. It again only works for like just the next beam. So this is something that you probably have to input most likely, if I had to guess, either while there's a big combo happening, to kind of carry off, or to make good, like really good use of this, you have to probably have like some type of move that just sends the opponent flying for a good while, so that way you can do the dance and then you can send send in your beam for another homing attack. Now I want to see what would happen if I was to do homing attack like this. Yes, so it still homes in even while they're jumping, which is pretty dang useful, honestly. This is definitely going to be one of her other really good go-to type of moves, because again, it does cover full screen, so it's actually a really good special. Now for Good Boy, which should be correct, right? I believe that's what this one is. No, Good Boy is the light version. Bad Boy is the medium. Okay, so Bad Boy is the one that goes from ground to up. So this is another one of those moves that's pretty good for essentially, hitting opponents from the ground to the air, or at the very least, maybe even potentially like keeping them, in the air as well, for a potential combo that you're performing. And of course, just like with the other version, I'm just going to do the light version here, or the special of it to make it easier. So, of course, if you were to do hypnotic hips, you could, of course, have it home in, and it should, in theory, do about the same thing as its predecessor does. Yeah, so basically just works about the same way. They both kind of just end up homing in, and that's just essentially how that goes. So let's go ahead and get into the next variant of moves, the teleporting moves. And this is another case of where Aki's strengths really kind of play, especially into her moveset. So she's really good at spacing, and she's really good at like keeping away from the opponent, so to speak. Not just keeping them away from her, but just being able to hide and stay away. And this is the first of that version. This is a light one, of course, performed by doing down S or down light. And this is the Elven Flash, and a teleport that sends Aki a short distance forward. Hold to teleport further. And that's something else to keep in mind. You can teleport further, which is really nice. The Elven Flash vertical version, the M version of this, is a teleport that sends Aki in the air, right in front of the opponent. Hold to perform a quick kick. So instead of this one actually goes in for a kick. And I think after I do these next set of moves, I'll go into the actual the Star Special versions of them. So let's just go ahead and do the teleport ones real quick. And we're going to start with the down light. So down light, you just teleport practically right toward the opponent. And it is only applicable on ground. You can only do it on the ground. But of course, if you want to, like it said, go farther, you could hold it down. And it looks like, when it comes to it, it looks like it just kind of just teleports wherever. That is weird. It's not doing exactly what I'm thinking it's supposed to do. Hold to teleport further. That's what I'm doing, I thought. Just doesn't look like it's actually teleporting any further, though. That's the thing. That's what kind of gets me a little confused here. Why I'm being kind of dumb. So as far as I know, it seems like it just does this, and is like a potential, from what I'm understanding, a potential cross-up move that you could do, depending on, of course, that probably is where it's actually coming into play. Is I think it's just a. I think the if I had to guess, and sorry, I'm supposed to be a professional, but Aki is just so. I don't know why. I just suck with her, I guess. Anyway, I'm sorry about making a terrible guide, but I will, of course, give references to potentially better things, so you guys can check on that. Just to see, you know, other ways of figuring things out that I might not be able to help with, of course. So, as you can see, this is a pretty good move that could potentially cross somebody up, and, you know, pretty decent side switch. Of course, if you're in the corner or whatever, and you really need to get out, and your opponent essentially gives you a way to kind of get out, then you could just do that. You could just teleport out, potentially out of the corner, which I'm gonna try a couple things here real quick just to see if it works the way I kind of wanted it to. I mean, that worked, but not. I thought I was holding it down to see if I could actually teleport maybe further out of the corner, but that didn't work. So as far as I know, it seems to be just, you know, you teleport to the enemy, and then you can teleport, you know, from front to back, of course. And then now the down medium version, and this one is going to follow up with a kick. If you just do it, it's just an air. But if you do the, you can do a move. If you do the medium version, you know, you can follow up with like another move while you're in air. You don't have to necessarily follow up with the kick, but the kick is really good. And the thing about the kick, though, is just make sure you hold it down the entire time because, well, of course, that's how you activate the move in the first place. But not only that, but it's just really good kick. It's really fast, really good. And you kind of want that fast hit, too. And I'm going to see if it's an actual overhead, though. It looks like it whiffs. Like, even if you were to, you know, yeah, you'd have to follow up with, like, another move that would essentially allow you to get an overhead. So, that's how that would have to happen. You'd have to go for that. You'd have to go for, like, a secondary overhead for that to work. So, if you're trying to go for an overhead, if you're trying to go for a crouching opponent, that's not going to happen. Not with that move specifically. So, okay. And then for opponents that could be potentially jumping, you know, it of course brings the opponent back down to the ground. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind too. If you want to go for like that slightly kind of, you know, that nice good knockdown, if that's what you're trying to aim for. And now we're going to get into, looks like the Mookie Rose side of things. So these ones are where, I guess I kind of, well, I wanted to show off other things first. These are where things are going to get a lot more, even more interesting too. And this is, of course, you know, these moves involve Mookie Rose, so you're going to do a lot of summon type stuff. And of course, you know, while Mookie Rose is being summoned, you can essentially do other stuff at the same time, depending on, you know, how long of his recovery is and all the animation stuff. So the Mookie Fist is a lightning quick gut punch from Mookie Rose that travels a moderate distance. And then the Mookie Pound is a slam attack from Mookie Rose that can hit the opponent from far away. The opponent can block this attack while standing or crouching. So clearly it's not an overhead, but we don't play like that around here. No, but anyway, so Mookie Fist is, as it says, it's a really fast move that comes out, you know, really fast. Does a decent bit of damage, not too much. Oh, actually it does. I was doing other moves. I misread that. It does, of course, you know, 90, which is pretty dang stellar. What the? Hold on, Mike. I think my controller broke there for a second. Things, it happens sometimes. It's really weird. So, oh, god damn it. I think my thing is breaking. Would you stop? Dude. Alright, hang on. Let me disconnect it and replug it in. Sorry, folks. Things are breaking here, it seems. Come on. Don't make me turn off the entire thing. Don't do this to me right now, Chief. Yeah, I think I'm... Uh-oh. Well, let me see something here. I guess I'll have to pause it real quick. Okay. Technical difficulties aside. Okay, yeah. Hold on. I don't know if my mic might have clipped in there or not. Technical difficulties. You know how it is. So, yeah, Mookie Rose Fist is pretty good, you know, to kind of help with, like with the wall bounce type stuff. You can kind of have him come out. Let me get a little bit closer here to kind of make this work just a little bit better. We try not to fudge it up, though, too. What am I doing? Okay. By the way, I'm playing a Pro Controller. I know that's the worst thing to play on. But you get the... There you go. You get the idea. So you can see what it does. Get that nice wall bounce. They come back. You can use the Mookie fist. God damn it. I'm actually terrible. I'm actually terrible. I'm not even being able to perform quarter circle backs with ease. I keep flicking something. I think I'm flicking my analog stick here. But yeah, so good, fast, quick punch. That kind of comes out, and of course, like I said, nice, good combo extender. So that's most of what I can probably give about that one. And then, of course, one sec. We're going to do the quarter circle back medium. I was trying to find if there was like any more information I could have probably used for that, but I didn't catch anything. So I just try to make sure that I'm on track. But for this move, I kind of know a little bit more about this move than the other one, technically speaking. Like I know that it's a pretty good extender. Like it doesn't do a wall bounce for the Mookie fist, but it's a nice combo extender, like I mentioned. So this move right here is actually pretty good because what this move essentially does is it might not look like it does much at first, but what it really does well in is it does well in something like this. So yeah, this is where things are going to get crazy. So this is actually an OTG. So you could, in theory, if you wanted to, maybe you want to do something like this. Well, you can't necessarily... crap. Let me try that over real quick. So, I think I'm getting too ahead of myself here. Alright, I'm just going to go for a sweep, and then we're just going to do it again. So, yeah, as you can see, it's an OTG. But the thing is with this game is with the IBS, the infinite, or IPS with the infinite preventative system, you're only allowed up to a certain number of moves that you can perform within that single combo. And as far as I'm aware, characters are only allowed 3 OTGs in one combo, possibly 2. That I am not 100% certain on, but I'd have to double check my notes on that one to make sure. And then, of course, with light and medium attacks, it's like 5 in one combo, and then like 3 for heavies, and then specials are like 3, and most of them are kind of like 3. But you get the gist. So again, this is a really good move to kind of just have Mookie kind of come out and then, finish off the opponent from the ground or whatever. And do keep in mind that Mookie will basically go to wherever that opponent was at that point in time when you do it. So something else to kind of keep in mind too when you are using that move. So that's definitely going to be a potential like go-to move for sure to kind of have come out and basically, OTG your opponent, of course. And as you can also see, like, I know it says, it does count as an anti-air. Like, it does give you the anti-air thing with it. So, it does happen. But it also does kind of help to sort of bring the opponent back down from the air so that way you can get, like, a nice, small kind of bound. And, of course, as the game said earlier, this should not be a overhead. So it does not count as an overhead, and the game says that directly, so I'm going from what they say. Alright, now on to the heavy variants of these moves. So the zone heavy variant, let me get this thing off my desk here. The zoning variant, of course, is the down forward, heavy, and this one actually shoots off both good boy and bad boy. And I think she says something, but it's been since I played Aki. I don't really play her that much. I don't know if anybody can tell. I kind of wanted to, actually. She was the character I was actually looking forward to the most. She looked really fun, and then my brain fried, I guess, at one point. I was trying to pick up this game because I was being kind of dumb. So, when it comes to hypnotic hips, I think that it should give the ability to both home. as you can see. Yeah, it definitely did. So that's definitely kind of nice to remember. And of course, you know, these take up, I think, like 1 bar typically. For those that might be wondering, it should. I think they usually take up like, okay, they only take up like half of like 1 bar, but it works. So there's that. And now, just put that back on. Now on to the next move, and that's going to be the down down teleport heavy variant. And this one is one of the ones I use quite often. Of course, you can use, you know, you of course have the medium version, but you also have the heavy version. As you can see, it's also -10 versus the -9 for the medium version. And this one, of course, would just essentially should do more damage. And I don't really... Hold on, that's bizarre. This one's doing 100, and this one's doing 60. So there has to be a reason why it does less. Let me go ahead and read about these real quick, just to make sure I'm not being dumb. Okay, that's probably... Okay, so let me show off the... Okay, so this one basically goes behind the opponent, and I think that's where potentially the main aspect of this one kind of comes into play. Like, they probably want you to use... Because, like, the medium version goes in front. This one just is like a ground teleport. And, of course, this one just teleports behind the opponent. So, that's probably where the less damage kind of comes into play, because now you can teleport behind the opponent and hit them from behind. So, and get that nice, you know, hold kick. Of course, whenever I'm doing the move myself, personally, I always go for the kick. And these are really fast kicks, by the way. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with these combos, and they're also pretty decent combo starters. Just throwing that out there. So the Mookie Knock Up, a beatdown from Mookie Rose that launches opponent up. It's best used to extend combos for more damage. So this is, of course, what it looks like. Nice, you know, 1 bar that... Or half bar. I have to remember that I cannot... Yeah. What's great about it, too, is, like, you can actually go from a sweep into it, which is actually pretty cool. So you can go from a sweep into the Mookie Knockup. And, of course, depending on, like, where you're at on the field to play here, will also depend on that, too, it seems. That's something I probably should have, you know, saw coming. But, yeah, a nice, decent move that you can kind of follow up with and, you know, just... Going for like some extra hits, like get like a nice jump in, like a really quick jump in move, or whatever, or like, you know, preempt move that you can do. Oh, that was something I probably should have actually talked about a second ago too, is that this move in particular is actually a bound move too. So yeah, for the down heavy version of teleport, don't forget that you can also bound your opponent while they're in the air. So that's also going to be really helpful to have alongside that. Okay, and yeah, Hey Baby, that's what, okay. And then Hey Baby's version just says sequence of light beams that cover both the air and ground space in front of Aki, and then like we mentioned us earlier, Hypnotic Hips does help with having him home. And if I'm not mistaken, I think... No, it does not do more damage. I don't think it's supposed to. Alright, so let's see here. We have basically just the one superstar attack, and this is, of course, bottoms up. And this one's super short-ranged. And, yeah, on hit, the opponent is bombarded by a wave of Rosatai and Mookie Rose. Its invincibility on startup lets it plow through attacks, but its range makes it easy to whiff. That's something else I kind of forgot to mention, because I kind of just forget things as I'm dumb. But you are invincible while you're doing the teleport, too, which, of course, you know, comes up in big words, which I love, by the way, because... makes it much easier to see. But that's something else to kind of keep in mind, is that's a thing. So, yeah, Star Power. This is a really, really close short-range move that you're pretty much just going to have to do. And it's pretty good. Like, you know, whenever an opponent is also, you know, bounded from the ground or whatever, it's also going to hit. Because I think as long as Aki's, you know, beer mug is within that range of hitting the opponent, should be the one that actually... contributes to the actual thing itself. Yeah, so it seems to be like it just had to be that. And of course, if you miss, if you whiff, you fall over and you get drunk. And then of course the other aspect of that too was the Mookie Rose coming in for the wall bounce. So let me see if I can actually potentially follow up with that. It might be kind of tight, but there might be a way around it. There's always potential. There's always room for potential with these types of moves. And I think that about covers all of the specials. So now we're going to have to get into the other fun part of things to do. And that's, of course, going to be the collabs, which luckily for me, the character that I want for one of those collabs happens to be here right now. So I'll see you guys when we do that in a second, when we do collabs. Okay, on to the collabs. Actually, before we do that, there's a couple things I did miss. So while we're still kind of sort of in the specials, you can press jump and special, and you can also do a teleport while in air. I don't know why I completely avoided missing that, but that's just a thing that happens to me. And then something else too is that the teleports, I think it's the down heavy one, has the ability to corner steal, like guaranteed corner steal. So that's how that is. And then with the down medium, it's also used for like a lot of crazy combos that Aki can do. And I think that's most why I wanted to cover with the specials. I don't think I missed any more. I think that's just about it. If anything, I can check real quick to make sure I didn't potentially miss any more. I don't think so. All right. Again, I'm getting most of that information from Mizumi, the wiki. So if you want to go see that information, you can go check it on there. But other than that, we're now going to be talking about the collabs and what I would prefer using. I'm not going to go completely over what they prefer using. I'm going to kind of go over what I just kind of see. And Roboco also, coincidentally enough, happens to be one of the ones that they recommend using too. So that's cool. Something I can actually feel smart about, I guess. So Roboco, the reason why I prefer using her for Aki, I mean, she's just a really good character anyway. And by the way, I also recommend using Roboco for Sora as well, just because of her pressure game. But, Roboco's missiles, come out nice little, combo stuff. And the extreme benefit that I can see for this is, of course, the combo extending ability, right? So, for something like this, you knock the opponent in the air or whatever, and then with that, you'd be able to follow up with, potentially even more like combo stuff. Of course, like her missiles stay in like one potential spot, and that's like super setup-y. But if you really are playing your cards right and you really know how this character works, this is definitely a case for you. Now, another thing that Roboco can do as well is, of course, that beam, fire that basically just keeps the opponent within grasp, like real close, and it's an instant beam too. And as far as I'm aware, I think it's also full screen, so you could just do something like this from like full screen, maybe something like that, or well, if I can actually get like the actual move to it. Well, anyway, you could basically just keep the spacing, and that's pretty much what I'm kind of getting at. So it's a nice space tool. It's a nice combo extender. Both moves are really good combo extenders. And of course, like I said, if you have like the opponent like within the air, you could do something like that. Let me try that again, actually. So yeah, if you got the opponent in the air, you could do something like this. That kind of stuff. That's basically what kind of boils down to her. I'm gonna go ahead and go back to character select and then see which other ones I would prefer. Typically, Mio is good pretty much with everybody. Mizumi recommends using Marine as their second collab member, and I kind of don't blame them for that. For me, I think I would probably have to say possibly, well, I mean, if anything, I could probably just I could probably just go over Mio. We'll make it easier on me because it's kind of hard to find a third one. I'll make it easier on me. We'll just go with Mio then. So yeah, Mio is good, of course, just in every character, in every predicament, because again, just kind of go over her, just for those that aren't aware, she has multiple different variants of things that she can do, and just to kind of go over them real quick in the fan list, I kind of don't want to make Mio the third collab member I recommend for like every single character on this game, but you know, it just ends up being that way a lot of time because Mio is just a really good fill-in for that third that you could use. She's a really good character to have around. So of course, you know, random effect number 1 inflicts poison status, which basically works really well with characters like Coco with fire because then I can actually work together, at least it's supposed to, as far as I'm aware. And then random effect 2 decreases the opponent's star meter, which is pretty nice to have. Which, by the way, Aki is really good at building meter. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind too, is because of her moves and her abilities, she's just allowed to kind of keep most of her meter because like you probably won't be using a lot of her star stuff anyway, unless you're like me and you hit circle for literally everything. Then yeah. Random effect 3, of course, decreases the opponent's attack power, and then random effect 4 increases the damage that the opponents take when guarding, and of course, the other version is a wall bounce, which, you know, if you were going to, I don't know, maybe like wall bounce, you could probably just have maybe potentially like another wall bounce, you know, if you really wanted to. So yeah, Mio is just good for like all around just passives and just having that extra little bit of stuff going around. And I'm going to throw out a really weird one here that I know that I don't think they recommend it, but I'm just going to recommend it myself. And that's Iroha. Because one, I mean, I barely ever, you know, use her for other characters and kind of want to show her off, but Iroha is kind of nice because, as you can see, a lot of her stuff is kind of like up in the air type attacks. And why I think that's pretty nice to have is because of something like this. So you can kind of like keep your opponent somewhat kind of floating in the air for just like a bit. So you can go for like, you know, maybe even more potentially fun aspects of things that you could potentially do. It's kind of hard to get them in the air with, you know, Iroha up there, but you get the idea. You get the gist. See if we can try something out here. So yeah, you can do some like pretty wacky, zany stuff. Like you could probably like teleport back up there over and over again while they're still getting hit, and be kind of hard just to kind of infinite, you know, IPS out of basically. So Iroha is really good for that version of it. I don't see her get played very much, so that's just kind of something else I kind of want to talk about too. So just kind of go over her moves real quick. I know I kind of forgot to do it for Roboco, but basically shoots out missiles and basically shoots out beam. And then for this one, anti-air, multi-hit, and yeah, I just throw them in the crossfire. And then like for this one, performs a powerful slash on the ground. That's not what I wanted. There you go. So basically, just think like, I think Kiara has the same one, where you could do like a thing on the ground, but it also it's also one of those cases where it has to hit the opponent at the right spot for that to kind of work. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. You can't be right in front of the opponent for that to work, but yeah, I would say out of her two things, Iroha would be great to kind of have as somebody keeping there. Also, something else I kind of forgot to mention. Aki, like, she's not, to me, she doesn't seem like she's very cancel heavy as, say, like Coco, for instance. So her having multiple collab meters doesn't really seem to matter much. But if you wanted multiple collab meters, then Mio would be definitely the way to go. But if you want to kind of keep your opponent in the air and just kind of like just mess with them a bit, then yeah, I'd recommend going for Iroha if that's the case. So that's what I'd say for the collabs. Now we're going to get into the hard part, that for me at least, the combos. So can't wait to see what those are going to be and how short that's going to be. But I'm definitely going to recommend some combo videos in the links below, or at least a combo video that I like a lot. So yeah, all right, here we go. Okay, so here we go. Here's where I'm probably going to struggle the most. Not because I struggle at combos, but I don't think I'm properly qualified enough to explain every combo. But I'll give you some kind of rundowns from things that I understand. So keep in mind that I don't feel qualified for this, but I will link some combo videos in the description, so that way you guys can go check out them for yourselves. I'm just going to kind of go over like some basic, you know, bread and butter type stuff, I guess you could do. So a normal universal combo, as always, is just typically the, you know, the regular Gatling, right? And of course, as you saw before, this one also leads into a bound, which could, you know, potentially lead into possibly even more stuff, if I just was smart enough to do that and, you know, not be so dumb. Now, one thing that, because I was practicing a combo for a while, and that was essentially trying to figure out how to incorporate the teleport. And typically, like with moves like this, you pretty much have to incorporate, some version of a special after you finish off with the heavy, because you can't go back into a normal. That's just how it is. And so I found that the down teleport heavy version was the one that typically kind of works the best for this particular combo. And something you can kind of, incorporate in your own types if you wish, of course. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you could follow up with that too. So after that second, or even after like that teleport bound, you could actually go into the down heavy version of the Mookie Rose kick and then go for even more potential combos. But that's the thing though, is following up with that Mookie Rose kick is quite difficult unless, depending on like the move you're going for, whether or not wouldn't lead into a bound or not, so to speak. And of course, with things like this, you kind of have to incorporate those too. I think earlier I said this was a good startup, but that's a lie. I don't know why I would say that. I don't know why my dumbass said that. But yeah, there's like a thing with her. I know this. They might have patched it, but there's like a thing with her medium teleport where it essentially was good for restand combos. So basically just, kind of just continuing a combo and just pretty much just breaking the game and re-looping things and making things hard on, people and what have you. But yeah, when it comes to Aki combos, a lot of them are typically going to somewhere along the lines go into like knocking the opponent kind of, far away, and then of course, bringing said opponent, toward you, or, teleporting in and, continuing off from said combo again. I always kind of just recommend going for like potentially the bound version of that. Oh, that reminds me. We can also do something like this too. One sec. You could also, like, there's that sweep combo, right? Like, there's like this sweep combo that you can do. The only problem with that though is, well, if you do a sweep combo like this, sorry, I keep coughing, but like my throat gets like really hot and dry when I'm talking too much. So one thing you can do like with this is like if you don't summon Mookie Rose, you could do a combo. Let me get it going here. You could do a combo. Ugh. Damn it. The game knows what I want. And this is something I showed off earlier. I keep doing the wrong one. I keep fudging it up. God damn it. Yeah, this controller is not made for fighting games, but I use it anyway for this one because it's the only one that connects properly. It's the only one that doesn't have a mic. If I could just show this off. Fine. Here. There you go. So, yeah, like we showed off earlier that this was, of course, a thing that, could, of course, be done. And you could essentially follow up with potentially even more moves at your disposal. But you gotta be, like, really quick with it. And it all kind of depends on, like, what types of moves that you could essentially kind of throw onto it. But then again, that's just everything, right? That's just everything. If I had to guess, off the top of my head, I think it would probably have to be like a corner combo type situation, I feel. And another thing too is like with Mookie Rose, we kind of explained this earlier, but with Mookie Rose, the problem with him though is he can't be like re-summoned just like you can't just have him come out multiple times and like at once, he can't be on screen at, like twice at once. So you're gonna have to use that to your advantage. But when it comes to like just regular basic bread and butter stuff, like I said, something like this nice little bound into a heavy teleport, and then you could kind of like rebound and then just kind of follow up with even more potential stuff and go into more specials. And Granted, you know, Aki does have a ton of stuff, but again, I am not qualified enough with Aki to really be the main grandstay of that, so I do apologize in advance. This might be my most disliked video of the entire series, but I gotta swallow my pride, man. I gotta swallow my pride. I hate to be like this, but it'll get better. I'll try to, you know, in future videos, work a little bit more on these things, especially with Ayame coming up next. Like, she should be theoretically easy enough to figure out. But I think that'd be it for the combos. And I think next we're going to talk about, I think, the how to beat. If not, then it might be something else I forgot. So, see you in a second. Okay, so now we're in the, what I like to call the how to beat a character type thing. And this one usually is a little bit more generic and kind of just an overview of the character's specific, like, weaknesses and strengths, so to speak, and kind of how to potentially play around those. So, as we've mentioned before, when it comes to Aki's strengths, you know, she plays really well with having nice zoning and just essentially being able to keep you away if she wanted to. And she does have some pretty damning punishing combos to do, but when it comes to a lot of her consequences, we mentioned this one earlier, but this is a really bad move that could potentially lead them into, you know, a punish if they were to, say, try to hit you with it, of course, you know. And I think if you were to block it, and I think if the opponent was to, say, counter hit, as they should, but they're not doing it for some reason. Unless I have to do it myself. Well, let's try medium instead, just to make things a little bit easier on me here. So, you know, this is, like I said, not really much of a thing I would recommend using, but of course, you know, if an opponent happens to use it a lot, then, you know, you just kind of like keep yourself. It's kind of hard to do with dummies, but you get the idea. It's a very move that will eventually be painful, so to speak. Like, you're gonna get punished if you use it, and it's kind of hard to follow up with too. But yeah, when it comes to Aki, like I said, you know, she does try to keep her distance, and she typically just kind of like floats away a lot of the time. You might see a lot of, you know, people playing like this, and, you know, you might be thinking to yourself, like, that's kind of a douchey way to play, but this is just essentially the way that Aki does play. So do keep in mind that this is just how things go. And of course, you know, with Aki, she can clearly, like, you know, kind of like trick you out to think, you know, you might not know exactly where she's going to go. But one thing to kind of keep in mind is, at least with the Akis that I've played against, typically they always like to try to stay away first. They always try to get into a position where they can try to, like, trick you into coming to them, and then they can try to follow up with, like, you know, bigger punishes. And of course, something else to keep in mind too is Mookie Rose can come from anywhere. Granted, this might sound like common sense, but, you know, paying more attention to Aki herself and seeing exactly what animations are about to happen, rather than paying attention to her character, should, in theory, help you get closer. But granted, with her spacing, the way to beat her spacing is to pretty much just literally just run up and block most of her stuff. She might try to do, like, a teleport side switch thing, but, like, the most she can even do, she can't really teleport behind you unless she teleports to you first. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind, is if she was to try to, like, get around you, that's not going to really work. So when it comes to, again, getting into her spacing, just one thing for sure is understand that if they wanted to use a homing attack, they're going to have to go into this animation, which is going to take even more time for them to activate it. And then, even then, still, you know, if you just know and realize, like, how fast those shots kind of come to you, and of course, you know, they can only be summoned one at a time, unless you're doing the heavy version. You pretty much just kind of just, you know, run up, block, run up, block, run up, block. And if she is projectile spamming, you could also essentially use, like, Kiara to kind of have, like, that shield to protect you a little bit. I think Kiara is supposed to protect you from projectiles, I believe. I haven't messed with her too much, but I think that's how it would go. And yeah, when it comes down to Aki, it's really kind of hard to particularly describe, like, every incident, with everything. But when it comes to spacing, she's good at spacing, yes. But if your opponent is just, teleporting, and then just going for spacing, then the closer you get, eventually once you get in, they're not really having anywhere to run, so that kind of leaves them in the open. Now, when it comes to like Aki front pressure, and this is one that might sound kind of weird, but I would say wait until like essentially, you see a Mookie Rose. Like say you're blocking the entire opponent's entire thing. I say wait for a Mookie Rose to kind of come out, to visibly come out, because at that point, like one of her go-to aspects of making her really strong, of course, would be the Mookie Rose aspect. And like once you see him on screen, that's probably a good time as any to try to see if you can try to punish, wait for a gap, and then try to beat her out before she summons Mookie Rose again, because he can be kind of dangerous. Of course, you don't want to get hit by that. Now, granted, when it comes to her teleports, especially like her vertical teleport, that's a little bit more tricky. And you're just going to have to keep an eye on that, as fast as you possibly can to predict whether or not she's going to try to go for something like an overhead type move. Granted, most of the time from the Akis that I've played against, they don't tend to kind of run in. Like I said, they typically kind of wait for you to go to them, or they just try to run around the field and then space you out for most of the game. Which, again, is not a bad thing. It's just that typically kind of happens. So, something to kind of keep in mind, obviously, is just, well, that's weird. Hang on. Let me try that again. So, I'm trying to figure out something here real quick. Trying to do like her anti-air so I can see something. I'm just checking some things. Let me try the teleport here. So it doesn't seem like the teleport can be easily beaten out, but it can be blocked from high. So that's something else too, is like I think with a lot of Aki is you don't need to worry about blocking low too much. She never seems to have too many lows that can just easily do a lot of things. All things considered, to be honest with you. So, like, even this move right here, is just like a trick. It's like a trick low. It's not even really like a real low. This one is, of course, too. But, hell, like, I don't even think this one's even a low either, because, like, it doesn't look like it. Neither is this one. Like, this seems to be, like, the only low that she has. And granted, when it comes to how to beat, like, just understand, like, what her specials are and what her normals are, like, that's all mostly just common sense, but that's kind of what this was kind of for here, is just like a slight overview of the character again. To kind of go into more potential specifics. But, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the best you could. I'm sorry if this guide wasn't good enough. I need to do better, that's for sure. But I hope that maybe you might have found something out of this, and if not, maybe you can check, in the description and find other things that could potentially help you. Because like I said, I'll leave some of the resources that I use down below, and use other things that I watch to kind of help out with these guides, which that would basically be resources, yes. I don't know why I repeated that, but anyway, I think that will be it for this guide for Aki. Hopefully you can pick her up and play her and have fun and potentially do a way better job than I could ever do. Because this is a relatively tough character. Like, she's easy to play. She is hard to master. There's no doubt about that. And next up, I think I want to do Ayame, but we'll see. Things can change. As far as it stands right now, Ayame would be one I want to do. And I also want to try to knock that out this weekend as well. I want to try to get these two done. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.